Yes, the wife test. It's going round and it's making me feel some things. It is from a psychology website. I know it's from a psychology website because I know the website. I think it's one of those things which is very clearly a meme, but at the same time, I'm like, this is on an actual psychology website and I feel like I need to talk about this. Do psychologists have proper tests for something like this? That's a good question. This is a proper test. It is technically an official test, but it is very, very old. It's like almost 100 years old. So when we're developing a questionnaire that we're using in psychology, we need it to be temporally valid. That means it's valid across times. So it needs to still be valid in 10 years' time. The thing is that people tend to change. So this was developed by a medical doctor in 1929, the marital rating scale. So there's a wife version and there's a husband version, and we're going to do both. It's outdated. At least they acknowledge this, but the test can still be used to get a glimpse of what marital norms were like and whether someone would have been good as a wife in 1929. There's a bit more information down here, which just gives a little bit of background. So the guy was a marriage counselor. He used this scale to like assess the state of someone's relationship, to assess the state of their marriage. Marriage counselling is still a thing. It's actually really common and really helpful for a lot of people. Normally just called relationship counselling now, because obviously not everybody wants to get married these days. But obviously it's changed quite significantly since 1929. Nowadays it's very much about, you know, how can we get you talking, get you communicating in ways that are healthy? Whereas back then it was probably a little bit more, how do you conform to your role as a wife or a husband? It consists of a series of questions or statements that couples respond to and generates a numerical score. That's a really standard approach for psychology in general, to be honest. We love our questionnaires. Like, we love them. We have a problem with questionnaires. We will throw a questionnaire at you for whatever we can. So good to know that hasn't changed. So it's outlining the qualities that Dr. Crane believed characterized a good wife. Interesting. It sounds to me like this is very much one guy's subjective opinion and then he made a scale out of it. What do you all think? The most common response was actually that you think I'm going to score 61 to 80. One person has put 0 to 20% and I have a horrible feeling that that might be husbando mod. I want to rate myself. Okay, am I a backseat driver? I don't drive and neither does husband, so I guess we'll just leave that in the middle. I can't play any musical instruments. I tried to learn when I was younger and failed horribly, so I'm gonna say never. Maybe one day, but not right now. I am slow in coming to bed, as in I hope this means to sleep, otherwise this is going to upset me. This is a wholesome stream and I don't approve. I am very slow at going to sleep. I stay up until like 3 a.m. This is from 1929, so it's probably a euphemism. Am I religious, as in sending the children to church or Sunday school and go by myself? I'm not gonna lie, I'm not religious at all. I just sit here and do my own thing, so no. Personally puts the children to bed. I don't have children, so I can't answer this. Do plushies count? I have an IKEA shark. I put him to bed. I pet him on the nose and say goodnight, my little friend. Maybe I should put yes. Flirts with other men at parties or restaurants. Joke's on you, I don't go to parties. These questions are so out of check, I know. I mean, I feel like flirting with other people at parties, unless you're in like a consensual polyamorous relationship of some sorts, like that's probably just a bad thing in general. But you know, lets the husband sleep late on Sundays and holidays? Yes, because I normally wake up after him. Is a neat housekeeper, tidy and clean? Well, I am a VTuber, so no. Can carry an interesting conversation. I think so. I think we carry interesting conversations here, right? Right? Has meals ready on time. Yeah, I mean, when I cook, I don't know, we do very balanced chores in my house. So, you know, I do a bit more of the cooking and husband does more of the cleaning. Has a good sense of humor, is jolly and gay. I think I have a good sense of humor. And well, I think I have an awful sense of humor, but you know, it gets some laughs sometimes. The equal stakeholder mod, that is true. He does own 50% of my channel. Though I do think some questions need to be answered by the other half. Yeah, I have a feeling that this was originally meant to be something that the other person responds to, and then they've kind of just let you do it yourself. What we would call like an other response questionnaire. So you can have self-report questionnaires, or you can have like observational type of questionnaires where someone else answers questions about your behavior. The wife goes to bed with curlers in her hair or with lots of face cream. What? No. Dresses for breakfast. I'm not gonna lie, I'm a breakfast in pajamas person. Is suspicious and jealous? Not really, to be honest. I think I'm pretty chill. Asks husband's opinions regarding important decisions and purchases. Yeah, it's more like a I'm anxious about it thing. Does that make sense? Because I still have student income. I'm always like, are you sure I can buy this? I just feel bad about buying things at the minute and I need validation. Puts her cold feet on the husband at night to warm them. Okay, I see memes about this all the time. There's a part of me that's really happy that this has not changed since 1929. Yeah, I do that. It's often late for appointments. Yes, I have a terrible sense of time. I am always late to my own streams by at least 10 minutes. Often has crooked seams in her hose. I don't know what that means. Is it like your tights are wonky? Probably. I don't really pay attention. Never goes to bed angry, always makes up first. I'm just an inherently angry person. Like, I'll just be angry at something silly, something work related, and that would just keep me raging. So I'm just gonna leave that in the middle. Wears red nail polish? No, I only really wear black. Once someone described my fashion sense as business casual emo and I still think about it. Fails to set on buttons or darn socks regularly. Assuming that that means like if a button falls off a shirt or something, then you put it back on quickly. I've got like a 3 to 6 business months turnaround on that stuff. So doesn't like children. Yeah, I don't like children. I don't know what it is. I just, until they're at least like 10 or 11, you know, when they start to become somewhat sentient, I can't cope with them. There's a reason why I'm an adult psychologist and not a children's psychologist. Is a good hostess, even to unexpected guests. I mean, I think I'm all right. I always ask people if they want a drink. I just do the kind of generic like, hello, do you want a cup of tea? Oh, I've got some digestives in the cupboard. Wears soiled or ragged dresses and aprons around the house. I don't wear soiled clothes, because that's kind of weird. Most of my clothes, I've had them for a long time because I just don't really see the point in getting new clothes unless they're like actually broken. So I would probably fall as a yes. They're not visibly just like disgusting, but they're just a bit old. Okay, what do I get? I am a failure of a wife. I'm so sorry, husband, I've let you down. I want to be able to talk about them both together. So let's do the husband one as well. Leaves dresser drawers open. No, that's actually one of my pet peeves. I hate it. I have a date with my husband at least once per week. We do try and go on dates, but it just doesn't always happen because we're both very work orientated, to be honest. And also we both have like hobbies that we want to do and then we want to just like chill. Reads the newspaper at the table. Okay, I wish I was joking. I actually do. I read BBC News at the table all the time, but like on my phone. I don't do it while we're eating though. Fails to come to the table promptly when the meal is ready. Yeah, I do that. I'm pretty bad for that. I leave the car for the husband on days that he might need it. We don't have a car, so that's irrelevant. I'm a good conversationalist, I think. So I'll put often. Give my husband ample allowance or turn my paycheck. Bruh. No, that's a bit sus. We've got our own sources of income. And then like we share the important things. Publicly praises his bachelor days and regrets having married. No, I don't do that. Criticises his wife in public. I don't do that either. Frequently compliments his wife on her looks, cooking, housekeeping, etc. You know what? I compliment the mod on his modding all the time, so I'm gonna put often. Compares wife unfavorably with his mother or other wives. Freud would have a field day with this guy, that's all I'm saying. Leaving shoes in the living room. No, this is also one of my pet peeves, is walking around the house in shoes. Is a steady worker and a good provider. I think so. I think I work hard. Well, I'm doing a PhD, so you'd think so. PhDs are workers now. I wish we had workers' protections. Helps the wife with dishes, caring for children and scrubbing. Yeah, I do that, meaning that I load the dishwasher. Is polite and mannerly even when alone? No. Not really, to be honest. Is courteous to the friends? Yes, I think I am. I think I'm nice to people. Remembers birthdays, anniversaries, etc. No, I'm really bad. Well, okay, I'm really bad for it, but I have a calendar. Brings guests home for meals without warning the wife? No. Consults the wife's opinion on business and social affairs? Absolutely. My husband is basically my streaming manager. Good communication is really the foundation for any relationship. Good communication and good trust. Trust is reliant on communication. You need the trust to be able to communicate, and you need to communicate to solidify the trust. Reads newspapers, books or magazines aloud to his wife. If he was from the UK or US, that is a bit weird because women were largely starting to be, well, no, they were mostly being educated to like a high school level by that point, right? belches without apology or blows his nose at the table. I'm a VTuber. I'm an average husband. So I'm an average husband, but I'm a failure of a wife. What does this mean? You married a meme? So true. What this tells me is that this is just horribly, horribly out of date. What's happened here was somebody with PhD and a medical degree, but in the 20s, he turned up and he wrote his little scale, and his scale was entirely based around his own opinions and values about relationships. So he's written scale items that match his values. These two tests together, they're two sides of the same coin, right? What they are telling us, in my opinion, is not anything to do with whether you are actually a good husband or wife. It is entirely around whether you fit into the traditional provider husband archetype and like submissive housekeeper wife archetype. We have these generalized stereotypes about what people should do and how they should behave, how they should act and how they should think and how they should present themselves and all of that jazz. Yeah, it's basically just testing whether you fit into that stereotype, but like the one from the 20s, basically. In the 20s, they would basically organize their husband's whole life for them. So the man would go out and he would work 9 till 5 and obviously commute as well. But then basically he wouldn't be expected to do anything outside of that time. So the woman would be in charge of all of the housework, all of the bills, organizing all of the appointments. She'd go and do this, I don't know, the taxes stuff at City Hall, stuff like that. That also varied across cultures though. From my understanding, that was how it worked in America. In the UK, the man was expected to do all of the paperwork and stuff like that and sort the bills, and then the woman would just be raising the children. This is another thing that you need to bear in mind with any kind of psychological survey. They vary considerably. So you need to think about how they vary across time, and you need to think about how they vary across cultures, because honestly, cultures can have totally opposite responses to these kinds of questions. Like being late for appointments, in some cultures, it's not expected, but you know, it's a lot more tolerated. So like in the UK now, if you're commuting into London and you've got an appointment or a meeting in London, the trains are just atrocious. So if you're late, a lot of the times people's like, okay, fair enough. In some countries, if you are not 5 minutes early, you are getting ostracized and everybody thinks you're incompetent. Cultural stuff has a really big influence on our responses to questionnaires. Also, even just in terms of how people respond. So this is on what we would call a 5-point Likert scale. It's not totally obvious what the things actually stand for. So there's like never and often, but I'm not really sure what the middle three are meant to be. Normally with a Likert scale, you'd have something like never, rarely, unsure, occasionally, often. A really common Likert scale is like strongly disagree to strongly agree. So it'll be like strongly disagree, disagree, neither agree nor disagree. And then it'll be agree, strongly agree. The problem is that if you have one like this, where like the slider is really good, it's really intuitive and it can help people respond. But if you don't have each of the sections labeled, then there's like a really big error element in there. People are basically just guessing what they're choosing. I could interpret this one as like sometimes but not always, whereas another person would be like fairly often. I might think, yeah, I'm late for an appointment like 50% of the time, so I'll put it there. And someone else could go, well, I'm late for appointments like 10% of the time, so it could go there. And then another person could think, I'm late for appointments 10% of the time, but it's always due to really bad traffic that's outside of my control. If you don't give really clear instructions on how people need to respond to these questions, then they will just respond to it in the way that feels right intuitively for them. It isn't reliable. People give different results each time. Also, there's the cultural element. So some cultures, especially Western cultures, we're more inclined to choose extremes. So I'd be like, oh yeah, often, because I am late for appointments, I don't know, 50% of the time. But then someone else from another country might look at this and be like, oh, well, you know, I am late for appointments sometimes, but I don't really want to admit to it because it'd be really bad for how people think about me. It's not really clear how late it means because, you know, sometimes I am 1 or 2 minutes late just because the transport here is so bad. What were they trying to measure? Right, admiration and respect. Emphasize the importance of mutual admiration and respect between spouses. Mutual respect, very important. Admiration, that's a bit of a weird choice of word, but okay. He believed that a good wife should hold her husband in high regard and express appreciation for his qualities and efforts. Obviously, this needs to go 2 ways. This can't just be the wife I hope this is on the husband one as well. So there's no indication of admiring and respecting your wife as a husband. So that's slightly concerning. Obviously, you know, you should express appreciation for the things that your partner's trying to do, but the respect should be both ways. It's nice occasionally, but excessive praising for those like basic things, it's a bit infantilizing, really. Affectionate and demonstrative. A good wife, according to Dr. Crane, should be affectionate and express love and warmth toward her husband. Demonstrating physical and emotional affection was considered important for maintaining a strong marital bond. You know, obviously different people express their affection in different ways, and it's just up to the couple to find a way that works for them. It doesn't necessarily even have to be physical. For example, if somebody's neurodivergent, being touched might actually be a bad thing for them. I have a horrible feeling that what Dr. Crane actually meant was that a wife should force herself into physical affection even when she doesn't want to. Housemaking skills, stereotypical. He believes that a good wife should be intelligent and possess conversational skills. Interesting. I think that this might be not even just reflecting stereotypical traditional gender roles. I think it might actually be reflecting a very specific type of middle-class American gender roles from the 1920s, when women were expected to be able to keep up with their husband in private but never outshine him in public. So when we're actually developing a scale, we don't want to just write down things that we think and then turn it into things that people can type agree or disagree to. We want things that reflect all of the possibilities for the constructs that we are measuring. For example, if you were developing a modern scale for whether somebody is a good partner or not, first of all, you already have to start off by acknowledging that that question in itself has values embedded in it, because you are outright saying there is such thing as a good partner, and what I think is a good partner reflects what actually is a good partner, if that makes sense. It's kind of suggesting that the idea of a good partner is like an actual physical thing that you can be instead of just an idea. And you have to be able to write them in a way that is going to be accepted across cultures, across times. So, you know, it would still be accepted now or in the 1920s. Frankly, with a question like that, it's basically impossible. Norms and values change over time, whereas other things sometimes don't as much. Maths ability generally has stayed fairly consistent. The basic types of numeracy haven't really changed that much. But even then, comparing it now to like the Roman Empire 2000 years ago, there's still going to be substantial differences. They would have thought differently about numeracy. We think about it a lot more digitally, whereas back then they would have actually physically counted stuff out. When you're making sure that things stay consistent across time and across groups, that's part of a concept called measurement invariance, which just means that you don't want it to vary massively when you're applying it to different groups of people. And I've said about cultures, it's not just cultures, it's also like, for example, gender groups, or I don't know, like anime fans and people that are not anime fans. It shouldn't be different unless there's like a theoretical reason underpinning it. Scales in general, they have a lot of issues. They can be decent. It depends on how they're developed. If you're generating a whole range of things that try to reflect every aspect of the construct that you're trying to measure, and if you're measuring on a broader scale, for example, you can do strongly agree to strongly disagree on like a 7 or even like 9-point scale, or even up to 100. If you can fit as much of the construct as possible, and if you give people enough diversity in their ability to respond, then scales can be good, but you also have to then go out and test them on a very large group of people. One of the better scales that I know of is the Neo Personality Inventory. This one's used in all sorts of things, and it's genuinely fairly replicable. They've tested this over and over and over again in very, very big groups of people, and they found that it works across cultures as well. There seems to be a pretty strong indication that it's fairly robust. That being said, it isn't perfect. Some of the cross-cultural research has suggested they don't quite fit. We've got 5 dimensions and then 6 dimensions within each of those 5 dimensions. So there's like a scale within a scale. If you're trying to visualize it, you just can't. It turns into a big old mess. It works, roughly. Some cross-cultural research has suggested that maybe personality might be slightly different in, for example, like I think it was China. They did a big study in China and they found that personality was represented differently in China compared to the West. Thank you all for joining.